what other numbers might be on there. If we just go with the normative one, we can calculate, or even if we don't want to do the math, we can approximate the probability. I don't even know how to begin to approximate the probability. But what I can say is that for the example that I gave, of multiverse versus God, the multiverse doesn't add things that are necessarily, like, it doesn't require that there's a magical being who exists outside of space-time forever who then can do stuff. But when we're making the list of candidate explanations, I'm kind of stuck. And so instead of saying, how confident are you that God doesn't exist? It should be every single time. Anyone who's saying they have good reason to believe that some God exists, they have a burden of proof. And it's not up to anybody else to disprove them, although that's what we end up spending a great deal of our time doing. It's like when we talked to Amir earlier, and Amir went from, because he thinks a God's probable, that leads him to conclude that because he thinks that God's probable and that we don't have scientific explanation for him, he has to explain that. And so his first answer is, God can't give scientific evidence. And then when he finds out that leads to a problem, he goes back and revises it, and he says, God can present scientific evidence. He just hasn't or doesn't. And so then the next question becomes, why not? And now that's how you get to, the deistic type gods. Because he's a non-interventionist God. Yes, but if he's not intervening, you're basically claiming to detect the undetectable. And yet Amir, who wants to stick with the deist God, I shouldn't be beating up on him, he's not here. I should be talking to Jason, but he wants to stick with the deist God because it doesn't come with the baggage that a theistic God does. And yet he also wants that God to be loving.
Right, it becomes theistic.
And you can have no more reason for that than the other. So leaning towards a deistic position is, to me, one of the most unreasonable things that one can do, because the deistic God, by definition, isn't detectable by us. And so anyone who claims there's a deistic God is essentially asserting that they have either detected the undetectable or that they have reasoned a way to detect without manifestation the undetectable. And I don't know how you do that either.
I will say I agree about it is extremely unreasonable, and it's something you usually realize later. And a lot of ex-religious people do, even though they're trying to be more reasonable. In other words, I'm just saying it is extremely unreasonable. However, I also empathize with the fact that people do it, because it's clearly like for a lot of people, a last-ditch effort to hold on to a type of magic that you literally believed in. Right. And in some ways also to not take on a label that, if you take on the label atheist, suddenly your family and people around you treat you differently. And so I can understand almost in apathy with people who go, well, I believe in something, because they want to satiate those people around them. However, I don't excuse it. I just understand it. I did think, Jason, while you were talking,